When an ecologist studies the landscape, what he or she is really studying is the territorial aspect of the ecological functioning of a geographical space. The ecological functioning is the flow of solar energy, captured by plants, stored in their biomass, and consumed by the rest of the living beings through the exchange of biomass between them and its final decomposition into the original gases and mineral substances. This flow of solar energy that connects living beings and the elements of their physical environment forms a system of interactions or ecosystem and shapes its functioning processes such as production, decomposition, edaphogenesis, or trophic transfers. Ecosystems are dynamic systems whose functioning and environmental conditions cause them to change over time. As a result, different ecosystems with different biodiversity are configured. In the short term, these changes consist of ecological succession. The state of maximum maturity reached by the ecosystem depends on the characteristics of the environment and the disturbance regime, also considering biological evolution. Each successional stage corresponds to a certain biodiversity that is lower in the initial stages and is mainly composed by pioneer species. Biodiversity increases throughout the succession as more specialist species appear. In the more mature stages, biodiversity tends to be lower because of competition between species, but made up of super specialist species. The spatial pattern of biological living beings and abiotic components, non-living elements that can interact is a relevant factor in the processes and composition of ecosystems and for their successional development. Then different ecosystems occur in different parts of the territory. These differences depend on the spatial variation of environmental conditions, the abiotic factors, the biogeographical variation of biological components, and, of course, the history of human use. From the point of view of ecology, this spatial pattern of ecosystems is called landscape, being the object of study of landscape ecology, and it is decisive for the biodiversity that can be found in a landscape. In other words, landscape can be defined as the spatial expression of the interaction between society and the rest of nature. Its characteristics, including its biodiversity, both at the landscape scale and each of its ecosystems, depend on the nature of this interaction. The human activities take advantage of the services provided by the functioning of the ecosystems of the landscape, modifying this functioning and their spatial pattern according to their needs. The potential services provided by each ecosystem depends on its successional state. Pioneer stages allow optimization of the use of provisioning services, if this use is sustained over time. If this is not done, succession can lead to more mature ecosystems with changes in species diversity, increased interaction between species and with abiotic factors, slower circulation of energy and matter, accumulation of biomass in the form of wood where possible, and increased availability of water and nutrients. Mostly, the mature stage provide regulating services. The use of the services provided by the functioning of ecosystems is based on a dichotomy. Maximizing the provisioning services, essentially biomass, implies that the regulating services are taken over by human action through sowing, fertilization, irrigation, elimination of competitors, and so on. If such human control was full and effective, the system could function sustainably. But, as it is evident, at present such control is not possible. There are not enough energy resources. and the maintenance of provisioning services is at risk. To keep provisioning services, some control must be left to the rest of nature, that is, to keep the regulating services. The maintenance of both types of services requires the existence of ecosystems with different degrees of maturity, resulting in multifunctional landscapes. These multifunctional, diverse and complex landscapes is related to the functions or ecosystem services it provides. That is, the economic function of provisioning services, for example, production, the ecological function of regulating services, for example, carbon sequestration, and the social function of cultural services, for example, recreation. In landscapes with patches of different ecological maturity, species of different succession stages coexist, resulting in high values of interpatches or beta diversity and have the potential to provide different ecosystem services. These landscapes present species specific to the different patches, and their spatial configuration is very relevant for the maintenance and coexistence of species at the mosaic scale. The heterogeneity or diversity of the landscape is associated to the number of different patches. The complexity or functionality of the landscape is related to the degree of interactions that are actually possible, regardless of whether they are probable or not. The fragmentation of the landscape is associated with the number of patches into which the original landscape is divided. According to the size of these patches, landscapes are either fine-grained or coarse-grained. Their connectivity is related to the possibilities of connection between patches. In heterogeneous landscapes, connectivity between different patches is established through horizontal and vertical energy flows. The effects of spatial structure of a mosaic landscape on biodiversity depend on the composition and spatial configuration of each mosaic. In some cases, they may contribute to increasing biodiversity and in others to decreasing it. A complex and heterogeneous landscape is characterized by high biodiversity and functionality. For example, in the case of a livestock system in mountainous area, its spatial configuration explains its functionality and allows for high efficiency in the use of natural resources, especially nutrients. The upland areas with abundant forests and scrublands provide water and nutrients to the hay meadows of the lowland areas, near the rivers where the cattle are fed. The forage harvest from the hay meadows is stored for the winter when the cattle are stable. During their stabling, their manure is stored and will be used to fertilize the hay meadows in spring, thus closing the free nutrient circle. This highly diverse, multifunctional landscape has been generated after centuries of human agro-silvopastoral practices that have co-evolved with the biophysical environment by a trial and error logic. The conservation of these cultural landscapes requires the maintenance of the traditional practices that have created them, and that is where the conservation challenge appears. The objectives of landscape spatial planning for biodiversity protection differ according to the prevailing landscape. In cultural landscapes, functional biodiversity refers to the set of species that contribute to ecosystem services that provide benefits to stakeholders as citizens or farmers. For example, in urban landscapes, this planning should aim at maintaining of green infrastructure and its connectivity. The functional aspect of biodiversity in this case is the continuity of ecological processes, movement of nutrients, animals and spores, as well as health and well-being of citizens. In agricultural landscapes, it should aim at maintaining the diversity of patches surrounding agricultural plots. The functional aspect of biodiversity in this case is, for example, pollination and biological pest control to improve provision services. Finally, In wild landscapes, functional biodiversity concerns the range of characteristics of the individuals of species and how these characteristics determine their possible relationships with their environments. Landscape planning should aim at maintaining their ecological integrity. The functional aspect of biodiversity in this case is the provision of regulating ecosystem services.